So, this welcome to this new episode of Agents of Chaos podcast. I'm Cube. Surprise, motherfuckers! It's not Crunch.
I mean,
And
I'm
now we
here,
got-
but you wanted to open the show today.
Yeah, that happened. Anyway, join with me is of course Crunch and the Scotty, the Scotsman. Hello, how are you doing, everyone?
It's raining right now. I just happened to look out my window. It's like, oh, it's raining. Lovely.
You know, it's weird. It's weird. It's not raining in England. What the fuck?
Over there. I'm giving the rush. He's got come. I can't get him much more.
Oh God. Yeah.
So, what are we doing today?
What are we doing today?
We're talking about running the show.
I thought we were talking about Kamen Rider. Okay. Today we're going to talk about the thing I just said. Now, for anyone who's watching this and doesn't know what Rider is, which is, I don't know why you click on a video about Rider if you didn't know what it was. Basically, Rider is the story. Rider is a long-running Japanese live-action tokusatsu franchise, which is basically like. Okay, I'm going to do it. It's kind of like Power Rangers, but made in Japan and has different like setup. So the basis of most Rider series, well, nearly, is there's always like a main character who a personal tragedy happens to them most of the time, and they all gain great power to fight back against the forces of evil that are threatening their world. So today we thought we'd go over some of our favorite entries in the franchise because it started back in the 70s, I believe.
1971, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I think
it
wasn't 2011 like the 50th.
40th, I think. What's it? Because it's the 50th now, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So now we are. So yeah, we are in. So yeah.
50 years of this insanity. Good lord.
I mean,
there's always.
Could we have a good way to introduce Rider to people? It's guys in BDSM gear fighting off other guys in BDSM gear.
It's especially considering modern Riders' tendency to just have Riders fight each other. That's sadly apt.
This is war and it's on tonight. Points for anyone who knows what that song was.
Yeah. So, who wants to talk about their favorite Rider series first?
Well, since we spent like 5 minutes discussing this before we even started recording, I guess I'll go ahead and start off. And we're doing 2 per person here. So
this is how many Rider series are there again? Like,
way too many.
I'm thinking because we got 20 for Heisei, 2 for Reiwa.
Also, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know,
also Showa. Those are the different time periods in Japanese history. We have There's 3 eras of Rider: the Showa, Heisei, and Reiwa, which is the new. Showa is basically everything from the beginning, 1971, all the way up to 2000, because that was the period where when the creator of Kamen Rider, Shotaro Ishinomori, was alive. He sadly passed away before the Heisei era started. Then we have the Heisei era, which is everything from 2000 to 2018.
Sounds about right.
2018-19, one of those. And then you got the Reiwa era, which is from 2018 or 19 to now, which has only got 2 series in it. So yeah, so ironically, all of our series are in the Heisei era.
Almost like it's the golden era in some regards.
To be fair, though, I've actually liked some Showa stuff, but yeah.
Well, I haven't seen any Showa stuff, so I can't pick any of those.
Oh, yeah. We need to show you. We need to show you Starfish Hitler at one point.
Oh God, that's the thing.
I know about Starfish Hitler.
Starfish. That one out of context image where it's 2 guys digging up a box saying Hitler's treasure. They open it and it's just Ichigo's in the box. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Starfish Hitler's from the magical Showa era when you could get away with shit like that.
Anyway, now Crunch's picks.
So my two picks are currently the posters for them are on screen. Kamen Rider Kiva, which, speaking of eras, so I should also probably mention that Heisei's era, because it is so long, it tends to get split in two different categories. There's the front half, which is just the regular Heisei era, and then there's the second half, which is the Neo Heisei era.
I mean, I like to do it this. The first half is the Edgelord era, and the second half is the meme era.
You know, considering some of the shows, yeah, you're not wrong on that one. But anyway, so first for me is Kiva, which is from the back half, or the first half of the Heisei era.
It was literally the last one before Decade, which split the two halves.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons why I really like this show is, one, the suit designs are absolutely fantastic. Like, the main character's suit design, which is on screen, looks really good. His upgrade form is also, like, probably my favorite final form.
Final forms are basically we're going to explain a lot. Final forms are basically the ultimate, like, can't get stronger form.
Well, depending on how you want to look at it, considering some of the Neo Heisei's loose definitions of that term.
Yeah, but most of those suck, so...
Yeah, but they still exist, sadly.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I just forget. I tend to forget about most of them.
But
anyway, yeah.
So Kiva's whole thing is that Earth is being attacked by frickin' stained glass vampires. That's the basic of it. They're just everywhere. They're just everywhere. They cause trouble, and then in comes this dude to take them down. Except, most of the time, he doesn't really seem like he wants to do this. It's a very interesting thing, because, like, the main character, Wataru, starts out as the biggest level of shut-in you can possibly imagine. Like, he mostly just stays inside of his house. When he does go out, the first time you ever see him, he's, like, wearing frickin' eye goggles. He's got a mask on. He's wearing, like, a plastic poncho, gloves. And he's just like, oh, I'm allergic to this world. And really, no, he's not. It's just, he's just got a massive mental problem. But as the show goes on, you do see him, like, starting to break out of that shell, or to tie it into what the theme song of the show, breaking the chains, because which is also fitting considering part of the suit he wears actually has chains on it, and they snap whenever he does his finishing kick.
You did kind of remind me of the contrast in the first episode of all that, and then you get that bit later where he first transforms. He's just walking around outside, and he's just like, "I have my bat sidekick, Kivat, which is his transformation device."
Yeah, that's, like, one of the more interesting aspects to this show, is that for most of the Rider series that we'll be discussing, the transformation devices are basically just, here's a belt, you snap a thing onto it, and you press a button or whatever, and transform. For Kiva, part of his transformation device is a literal living creature that bites his hand and then hangs off of his belt upside down. And of course, it makes sense because the thing in question is a bat, and actually, on the poster, it's the little thing that's floating near one of his hands. So it's like, his belt literally talks to him. It's kind of hilarious. And
the belt is his best friend.
I mean, it's not entirely inaccurate.
You're the only one who loves me belt. Anyway, there's also the music, which is some of the best in the franchise, I would say.
Oh yeah, no, the music in this show definitely is high tier for me, partly because of the fact that, like, the show has a very violin heavy orchestra soundtrack. Like, the main character himself actually plays violin, and as it also turns out, so did his father. So it's like kind of something I guess he inherited from Daddy Dear, which
Oh god, we gotta talk about him.
in a minute we'll get there. But yeah, no, like there's a lot of violin mixed into the music, and then also like all of the insert theme songs, or at least a majority of them, are actually sung by the main character because I guess it was either him or like Toei put together a rock
I think
group where he was the main singer called Tetrafang.
Tetrafang. Yeah.
And yeah, no, some of those tracks are some of my absolute favorites in all of the Rider as far as music goes.
I think something also interesting is when you look, especially looking at modern Rider, you don't get that many memorable insert themes anymore. I feel like the last series that had like a couple of good tracks was probably Drive, but after that, the music just kind of, yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's
music, yeah. The music for the shows aren't bad, like as background music, but they don't have insert themes as much anymore.
yeah, I have noticed that. Like I do know like Drive did have a few of them. Like one of them is sung by the three main riders, and then of course you have a Kamen Rider Girls song popping up somewhere in there. But
Yeah, Spinning Wheels and the one for the final form.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it's like looking at the current one, Saber. I think there's only been one insert theme that's actually like, yeah, one insert theme that's like actually been like memorable, and I think they've only used it like once. So that basically shows you the quality of how much just the music, the insert themes have gone out the window. But yeah, no, some of like Roots of the King is a great one.
oh,
My pr- my pr-
the opening riff of Roots of the King by itself will just like send shivers down your spine. It's so good. I wish
my
we could
personal
play it,
favorite.
but I don't want to, do copyright problems.
YouTube be after us. Also, personal favorite Supernova, which is Kiva and Perform's theme.
Oh yeah, no, that's like probably one of my favorite just final form themes in general.
Yeah. Kiva
God,
was, yeah.
you can't talk out loud, Scotty. You don't need to keep typing in the chat. uh,
Anyway, so yeah. Also, I think we should mention the time aspect of Kiva.
yeah, I was gonna get
Because
around
it's
to that.
actually,
So
it's,
basically, one of Kiva's more unique aspects as well is the way that the story is told. So it actually takes place between two separate time periods. There's the modern time, which at this point when it was airing was 2008, and the past, which is in like 1980. I want to say it's 86, but I'm not sure exactly if it's
I
in the
don't remember.
1980s era.
Yeah, because I don't think any other Rider series has done it.
Not
They
that at
definitely
least
didn't do
not
it
out of the ones that
before.
I've seen.
They didn't do it. They haven't done it since, I believe. No,
Because
and
like I
stuff like
know they've
time
done
travel.
like I know Ryder has had like um little bits of like time travel here and there, but not like this. They haven't done anything like this
I would
before
actually,
or since.
I'd be interested to know. I just thought of something. There's something related to the series before it, Kamen Rider Denno, because of the whole time travel aspect of that series. I'm thinking now if Toei actually did just go, hey, what if we made like we did time aspects in the next one? Because of just how the story gets played around with. But yeah. Toei
Yeah,
have this Toei have this thing of just take, hey, look, something popular. Let's try and print it again.
possibly, but I will say though, like the way it's done here is actually pretty good, just because it's like you get this interesting juxtaposition between the cast of the past and then the cast of the current time, and the cast of the past primarily is Wataru's father, who is an absolute treat and a half of a character. Like the actor who played him, you can tell they basically just let him just have fun because there are so many silly scenes of him just like being an absolute clown, and it's utterly gorgeous. And then there's like
Mhm.
other scenes where like he's actually being like really serious, and you can just see the range that this dude has in terms of acting capability, and it's honestly like one of the best things ever.
I will also want to. I also want to mention his actor was also in another Rider series.
Mm-hmm.
Good old Build,
Oh yeah,
but he wasn't as fun in Build, so we're not going to talk about
yeah.
that.
And then there's also like, speaking of cast, there's like the side cast, which is most of it is a group that is also fighting the Fangires. It's like a human organization. I forget. It's like the Wonderful Blue something or another. I forget exactly what they called themselves. It's been a while since I've watched Kiva. But basically, yeah, it's just humans who know that Fangires exist and they're fighting against them. And in the past cast, there's this one of the members is this. I really wish I had a character list in front of me right now because it has been so long since I've watched Kiva. I'm forgetting some of these damn characters' names.
I mean, I just looked it up. That the organization was called the Wonderful Blue Sky Organization.
See, that's what I kind of thought it was, but I wasn't sure. What's the name of the main chick from the past side?
Is
Isn't it
that
like
Yuri? Yuri?
Yeah, Yuri. You got
Yeah.
Yuri, who's this like pretty much no nonsense type of character who runs around with a blade whip, which is amazing, and also Castlevania as fuck. And then in the future, or in the the modern timeline, you've got her daughter as a member of this organization, basically doing the same shit she was, which is it's kind of interesting because there are like a few episodes where you actually like see stuff where like Yuri does one thing, and then you can see how like it's a setup for something in the future. Like there's one very specific Fangire that is reoccurring through a lot of the show because he's like one of the higher ranking type of Fangire, so he takes a lot more to kill than a normal one. And both the mother and daughter have to deal with this guy, and you see like one Yuri does one thing to him in the past that her daughter Megumi catches on to and uses it to put him down in the future, and it's just like that is like really awesome storytelling, personally.
It's kind of funny considering who wrote the show because we will be coming back to him.
He's
It's
all over the place.
He's an interesting writer to say the least.
Yeah.
We'll be coming back. Yeah. I liked all the suits. All the suits, at least in the series, look great because some of the movie ones were.
Yeah. Well.
But who cares about the movies?
But yeah, no, like the suits. Speaking, like, just going back to that, like I know we touched on that slightly, but like the Fangire, as I said, they're basically stained glass monster vampires, and so like when they're in their monster form, it's a mixture of like they're all based on an animal of some kind, and but they have like a very stained glass look to them, and it's
They have
just like
they have patterns.
they have like
all over
stained glass patterns on them, which also is like amazing, just because whenever they actually kill these things, they shatter, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, beautiful.
Head explode into glass.
Literally, they fall all to pieces.
God damn it. And then you get I'm trying to I just like I'm trying to think what else is there to say about Kiva.
Well, one of the other things that I will say about Kiva is just that when I watched it originally, it was, I want to say at this point it was fuck, my sense of math and timing stinks. I want to say it was like 2010, so probably about 11 years ago, roughly. So I would have been about 17, 18 back then, depending on when exactly in the year it was. And as my younger self, I found myself actually like really relating to Wataru a lot, just because like that's mostly the way I lived my life. I like just stayed at home, didn't really go out much, just kind of just stuck on my computer. And so it's like seeing him being a shut-in hermit type character kind of resonated with me in a way. And then, watching some of the later stuff that happens to him is just like really made me kind of like feel for the guy. Especially there's like one particular scene near the end of the show that just kind of made me go, "Oh, you poor boy. You need a hug."
Good boy.
Anyone who has seen the series probably knows exactly what I'm talking about, and it's something tied to that writer's particular style that we were hinting at, but we'll get back to that later.
Oh, yeah, I just realized.
Yeah. I think one of your shows is a better example to go into what his deal is over this one. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's my favorite one. Anyway,
But yeah.
Kiva is good.
Yeah, I would say definitely give it a watch. It's worth the fun. Of course, that being said, don't bother with the summer movie because literally nothing of value happens there, and don't bother with the crossover film, Den-O, because nothing of value happens there either, and it's not even a Kiba crossover movie. He shows up for like 5 minutes at most. It's not worth it. Don't bother.
Crunch wanted his money back even though he didn't pay for it.
So here's the thing about that movie, though, right?
Yeah,
when I watched it originally,
yeah,
this was back when I was like really just starting to get into Rider, so like I thought everything was awesome. And
well, to be naive were you?
Well, again, I was younger.
To be fair though, this was back in the years where Rider was like this was back in the better years of Rider.
Also, yeah, Crunch. I was typing earlier mainly because you would have just heard me screaming my back end off.
Fun. Anyway, but no, so like the crossover movie with Den-O, I think it's a fine movie. It mostly just feels like a really, really long episode of that show. It just did not need to have Kiva crossing over into it because, like I said, he literally shows up for like 5 minutes at most, maybe like 10 tops. Between like all of the scenes that he's in, it's like 10 minutes worth of footage at most. So
wasn't it like the first crossover between Riders in the Heisei era?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, because then you get to the movie war stuff with Double and Decade.
We do not talk about that. Because that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah.
We could spend an entire episode breaking Decade apart as it is. But anyway.
Also,
that would be a great comedy show.
You guys were talking about a toy, and I just posted that GIF on the whiteboard. The best GIF.
Just him dancing around in a park, just having a good old time. The man is vibing and feeling life.
Yeah, basically, the thing is, though, you've got to kind of be... I think the thing we're also probably going to get into is a lot of Rider movie... Half the extra material for Rider is kind of like superfluous, especially like the movies.
Because 90% of it is always said to be non-canon, because it just... They basically have a lot of the actors just not acting like they do in the show, and they just it's not the guy for the show. It's fine.
Well, that was a thing that they did a lot of with the first half of the Heisei era. Like, I'm pretty sure between Kuga to Kiba, any movies that came out, those were considered as like non-canon stuff, except for Den-O. Den-O's like the only one that I think kept its movies in canon with itself. Like the summer film for Den-O was like called back to several times in the actual show. I do remember that.
Akito I believe Ryuki to Kabuto's movies are non-canon because they're alternative endings. So those make sense. Why they're not canon? Why they're not the same? Hell, the Kabuto one even like implies that is an alternate timeline that implies that the main writer Tendo basically altered altered the world to make it less worse. So apparently, the worms trying to take over Earth was the less bad option versus the movie option.
That was we'll get to that considering that's one of Scotty's choices. But anyway,
Spoilers.
Spoilers, honey.
eh,
Anyway, we get to and I think should we move on to your other pick?
yeah, because I can't really think of much else to say really.
It's the one
So-
where the guy betrays everyone.
Yeah, jumping over into Neo Heisei, we have Kamen Rider Gaim, and I'm just gonna say this one right out the door, written by the Uro Butcher himself. Again, Urobuchi.
I love the contrast between Kiva to Gaim.
So yeah,
What's
Kamen Rider Gaim is quite the ride and a half, just because of like how much this story goes through in terms of like just everything.
It's probably the most well-developed world, or at least setting, out of any Rider series. I'm trying to think of one that comes close.
It's definitely probably one of the best setup of like the Neo Heisei era. That is the definite for sure.
Yeah, because usually in Rider, it's just like it's usually just like a small cast, just fighting random monsters of the week, versus like, and then you get to Gaim where it's like it feels like there's just so many like, because it was okay. Gaim was inspired because the thing about Gen Urobuchi, a lot of his stories and writing tropes were inspired by another Rider series, Kamen Rider Ryuki. And Gaim is basically Ryuki done right, because Ryuki's bad.
It's Ryuki mixed in with a little bit of Fate.
Yeah, but
because there are some parallels in here you cannot ignore.
He also wrote a Fate series, but
I mean, that's partly why I said that, because he did do one of the Fate series prior to this. He did Fate Zero.
He did the best one. Anyway, so let's talk about Gaim.
So Gaim's whole starting premise, and I'm saying starting premise, is basically there's a city in Japan where
Zawame City.
Yeah, Zawame City, where there's basically a bunch of groups of teenagers who like to do dancing shows, and they essentially fight each other sometimes over, having stages to do their performances on. It's so very weird, and especially even more so when you see how they do this, which is basically using Pokemon battles.
I want to see the pitch meeting for this show.
Yeah, I know.
So you see, guys, I have this idea for a Rider series.
To have been a fly on the wall that could understand Japanese while this whole series was being pitched would have been like glorious.
Can I mention something? And then they use these devices called lock seeds, which are the transformation trinkets, which we should probably also basically Rider, especially in the Neo Heisei era, started to rely more on transformation gimmicks to go with the belts. So the lock seeds were basically like they open up. They're like locks, but they're based on fruit. So you get then you get the main character Kota, who is amazing. And he gets taken. So he basically goes through this zip into another. Well, and because he was looking for his friend who he lost, and he finds a belt and ends up getting a lock seed, the orange one, and uses it and defeats a monster that's attacking him. Basically just normal Rider stuff. And then it gets flipped on its head later on.
Oh, it gets flipped so hard on its head later on. It's
So it turns out that the monsters that they summon come from this place called the Helheim Forest, which is another dimension planet thing. I didn't really get it. Is it another dimension or is it just a different planet?
I don't know actually. It's
Because like
they summon the things, the monsters that they use for fighting through this or through the zipper gateways, which I love how they're literally zippers. It just like a hole just like unzips in the sky and then out drops their little Pokemon thing, or in the case of when they're transforming their rider armors.
yeah, they have basically yeah, and so it turns out that the Helheim Forest is slowly taking over this. Coming into our world for like cracks. And the problem is like if you eat the fruit from the Helheim Forest, you become a monster in Invis. So basically, this company called Yggdrasil, headed by the most glorious bastard, Takatora, and his trustful friend Ryoma and his sidekicks are basically trying to like they're basically using it as like is it like a survival thing?
So the whole thing for it was
I
Yggdrasil
haven't
was
watched
partly
Gaim
using
for a
Zawame
while.
City as a testing ground for their technology. So because they're trying to like either find ways to combat the Invest's invasion, or if they couldn't actually like stop it from happening entirely, they were basically going to go with, all right, we're going to just mass produce a bunch of this stuff so that way at least part of the population can survive while the rest of it gets killed off. It's a very messed up little situation. And yeah, no, this series honestly is like probably one of the densest that writers had in a very, very long time, just because of like all of the different twists and turns and like all the different like little plot lines that are going on with all of these characters. And like it sounds like the way I'm describing it right now, it sounds like it should be a gigantic mess and a half, because like there's just so much going on. But honestly, the way that it's put together, it all really like flows very well. It doesn't really like leave anything hanging at the end, so it's like you're not really left asking too many questions. The only problem I have with this show is there are 3 episodes in particular. Actually, no, 2. There are 2 episodes in particular in the series that don't need to exist,
I
but
think I know which
unfortunately
ones
they do.
I think I know which ones you're talking about.
And one of them is a crossover episode that was designed specifically for the sake of promoting a different hero movie.
Kikaider.
They were trying to do a reboot of an old franchise called Kikaider. And so they decided to have a short, here's a thing that just kind of happens off to the side episode. Has nothing to do with the main plot. It just happens.
I just remembered the fact that one of the characters just transplants his brain into a robot, and then the next episode he's fine.
Yeah, no, that was a thing.
That was stupid.
Because one of the characters happens to be a mad scientist type dude.
He's amazing.
Who got his hands on a piece of tech from that side of reality, and
Hikaider.
Yeah, basically. It's like basically the evil robot enemy for the hero robot. And sticks his brain in the damn thing. I'm like, anyone who knows anything about science, first off, that's not going to work. Secondly, what the fuck?
Yeah, and the other episode I believe you're thinking of.
The other episode is a fucking soccer episode, which takes place partly in the universe that the summer movie takes place in, because this is one of those ones where for some reason there's an alternate timeline movie setup thing, and it's really stupid, and then for some reason in the last episode they have a callback to it. I'm like, so was it canon or not? I don't know. It's dumb.
I think it is meant to be canon, but
it doesn't make sense.
Here's the thing. Here's a nice bit of advice for the viewers at home. Don't watch the movie; it's bad.
Yeah, the movie sucks. The episode itself, you can actually literally skip it and lose nothing, because because the episodes that are before and after it literally are set up in such a way that skipping out on that center episode, on that one particular episode, you won't miss anything because the one before it ends in a certain way, and the one after it picks right back up. So this one movie that ties into that, or episode that ties into that movie, complete skip, just forget about it. No point to it. And then the only reason why, actually, yeah, pretty much just skip it because I know, like I just said, the last episode of the show kind of makes this minor callback to it, but whatever.
I'm so confused about that. I'm convinced because I checked the final episode isn't written by Gen Urobuchi. I'm convinced what happened was the company Toy, they had a set amount of episodes for Gaim, but Urobuchi wrapped it up one episode early, and they would just make up an ending, and it was mostly just there to try and give. Okay, let's talk about Mitsuzane.
Or Michi, as everyone else called him.
Yeah. Michi was basically the character who betrayed everyone. He was the traitor meme he was the are you really a traitor meme from Blade.
Yeah, so this character is basically he's one of the main cast's friends. Essentially, like I said earlier, most of the characters are broken up into little dance groups, and Michi was a member of Team Gaim. And so, and also, just as another side, he also happens to be Takatoro's brother. So
yes,
there's
everyone's
that little connection. But
Takatoro, the most popular character in Gaim.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And so he also has a unfortunately unhealthy obsession with the main female lead as well. Yeah. And so he just starts doing things as the show goes on that just literally is exactly as QB said. He pretty much starts just doing anything and everything that he can to get his own goals, and he will literally betray anybody, including our main hero.
Yeah, his journey he's one of those characters where it says a lot about him when there's, even to this day, parts of the fandom still have, because they tried to pull a redemption arc with him right at the end, and there was setup for it, but even to this day there are parts of the fandom that still haven't forgiven him for all the shit he did.
Yeah, and here's my whole thing with Michi, having recently rewatched most of Gaim and seeing him go through this whole thing again. I will say that while yes, a lot of the stuff that he does is pretty messed up, I can kind of understand where he's coming from in some regards, just and simply it's due to the fact that one, he's a teenager. Teenagers are fucking morons. That is just a fact of reality. I hate to say it. There are some smart ones out there, but a lot of them are fucking idiots. And two, look at the world that he lives in. He's not exactly mentally stable regardless, considering he's the younger brother to a guy who does the typical Asian older thing where it's he has very high expectations pushed onto him to do well, especially because I think Takatoro wants him to start taking helping out with the company stuff as when he gets older and all that crap. And then you've got his own internal desires of just wanting to more or less be a normal person, hang out with his friends. He's got his own thing about because he clearly I don't think he ever clearly says straight up that he's in love with her, but you can tell he's in love with her. But she has eyeballs for the main guy instead. And so, that, especially when you're a teenager, that kind of emotional turmoil can really screw up somebody. So, and then of course you have just everything else that just gets tossed onto him because he knows about the whole thing with what's going on with the Helheim Forest and why it's moving in on them and stuff, and like he's trying to like he spends a lot of time trying to keep that little aspect of it a secret for a long time, and and also like one other thing that uh, happened, like he's trying to do a lot all at once, and I cannot, and doing what he's doing, I can see why he got so mentally screwed up to the point where he's just trying to do anything and everything that he can to get his goals the way that he wants them, or trying to hold on to whatever he can. So, like, I'm not as hard up on him as a lot of people are. Like, again, some of the stuff that he does, yeah, no, it's still messed up. I won't even try to play defense for that, but I can still understand why he is the way he is.
I also think that this redemption is rushed in the series, but I do think that the preceding crossover movie helped.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Gaim Drive crossover movie did give him and Takatora a lot of like redemption for like the crap that they had to do. Because even Takatora did some pretty shady shit during Gaim. Like it
yeah,
wasn't to the same degree as Michi. Michi pulled way shadier crap, but even some of what Takatora was trying to do is not exactly what I would call on level.
yeah. But
I mean,
yeah,
really, just
yeah.
everybody in the show was just. This was very much a show of just like ideals clashing in so many different ways. Just everyone's trying to do one thing and other
We need to
getting
talk.
in the way of each other.
We need to talk about the best character.
I mean, it's basically just a fucking right. Like we said earlier, this is basically a rider war, like Ryuki, with mixtures of fate put into it. Considering at one
But
point they essentially have a holy grail thing coming up.
but I think the difference is though. One, there were likable characters. Like, here's the thing: I understood why everyone was doing everything in Gaim. The problem with Ryuki is most of the characters in that are just assholes. They're literally just like, we're just trying to fight this war for ourselves.
I
And
mean, yeah,
like,
that's basically what it is, and of course, Ryuki also has the issue of like the whole war is it's basically just a puppet master playing with a bunch of people as his puppets to do his own thing, which then just ends up
there's
getting retconned by this show's ending anyway. So it's like, congratulations, you just wasted your time watching 50 episodes of stupid in more ways than one.
there is like a cat. There is the DJ in the show, but he's more of like an observer. He manipulates stuff. Like but he's not like. I wouldn't call him a puppet master.
No, so like, yeah, no, the character that you're referring, DJ Sagara, for
Yeah.
me, mostly the way I see it with him is like, yeah, he's just kind of like, he's very much observant, as you said, but he also just likes throwing in things to like help one side or the other just because it amuses himself. He is very
Gotcha,
much
Doki.
an agent of chaos, I would say. Just like,
Yeah.
pretty much, it's just like,
Uh,
okay, let's mix it up a little bit. Here, have a thing, have fun. Let's see what happens.
but yeah, no, I think the thing about Gaim that I love a lot is is just the diversity of characters. Because let's face it, a lot of characters in fiction fall into tropes, and like especially in Rider. And then we have this show which has the most glorious Orin, who's amazing, Mister Dangerous.
I mean, he's a good character, but
And then, well, also and then I'm forgetting his name, his sidekick,
oh yeah,
Yoko,
Jonichi.
Yoko, uh, the Sid who had that meme death. Uh,
I mean, Yoko in and of herself was kind of a meme because, I mean, really, what did most people probably remember her for? Her legs, because she just kept kicking people and wanting to suck off Kaito.
I remember the leg. What? Uh, anyway, yeah, yeah, it was more like yeah. So yeah,
So, moral of the story is go fucking watch Gaim. You will have, as we said, it's probably like, definitely for me, it's like top. I would say probably top of the Neo Heisei, or at the very least, like second best. And you will have a good time watching it. Just skip the crossover episodes.
I'd say second or third, maybe, but yeah. Anyway, so is it my turn?
Yep.
Let's talk about Kamen Rider Fies. Oh boy.
Open your eyes for the next 5.
What he said. Anyway, Fies is basically the story. It's kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna. It's written by the same man who wrote Kiva, which Crunch talked about earlier, Toshiki Inoue. A lot of like Fies basically starts like it's based on the real world, except there are also monsters called Orphanox, which are basically monster races. They hate humans because they're not them. And it's one of the aspects I find interesting about this series, is that whole angle. And yeah, they've also got some really good design. Anyway, they basically control a company called Smart Brain, which has developed a rider system of their own. The Smart Brain gear. So they have these different rider belts developed, but they're not used to fight. I believe they were developed for Orphanox to use to fight the Orphanox they couldn't control. Because only Orphanox can use the rider belts, as one of the twists of the series basically says. So basically, this girl called Mari gets can't remember who was it. It's my favorite rider series. Basically, she gets her hands on one of the belts, and she meets this guy called Takumi, and they basically go on a journey to try and find out what's happened, because I think her like father or someone close to her was like involved in everything with the Orphanox, and they're basically it's basically about fighting them, because the Orphanox can also convert humans into Orphanox, or they die. And it's like, and there's also these Orphanox within the organization led by this man called Kiba, who I will talk about. The thing one of the things I love about Fies is probably like it's like Kiba. It's got some of the best suits in the series. Like I love Fies, Kaiksa, and some of the movie writers like Saiga and Orga. I think Delta's probably my least favorite. But yeah, Fies is one of the things I really admire about Fies is its whole, because it came after the previously mentioned Ryuki, and Ryuki basically destroyed Rider's reputation all the way up to a certain series that someone else will be talking about in a bit. And Fies was basically a reflection on the death of the ideals of the Rider that Ryuki destroyed. Ryuki was all about basically don't be a hero. Don't be a hero, fight for yourself. And Fies was reflecting on that. And a lot of it is like, I will say the thing about Fies is it's got themes of depression and dark. So I don't think it's for everyone. But yeah, it's interesting how it like looks at it, because it's like so like you got like this character called Kiba who basically died in a car accident. His parents died. But he comes back as an Orphanox, because when you die, you can become an Orphanox as well. It's not just conversion for others, because it's how they sustain their society. He basically grapples with he basically spends the whole series grappling with his with his own depression and everything, and even in like the movie where he basically goes insane. And then you get stuff like, I love the Orphanox designs, like all the different. I like how they have, because something else, I think it's kind of like what Crunch mentioned with Kiva, like the stained glass. I love how all the Orphanox have white. They're all white to show like a symbolic. I believe it's like symbolism for purity of how they reflect themselves as seeing themselves as better than humanity. And then
White's also a color associated with death, since a lot of Japanese ghosts in folklore portrayed wearing white dresses with white hats.
Yeah. And yeah, no, Takumi is one of my favorite writers because of his whole thing is about his whole thing throughout the series is he doesn't have a dream, but he's like but he wants to protect the dreams of others, and I found that very just like because personal bit, I went through depression a couple of years ago, and I feel I've recovered from it now, but just those feelings of just being alone and not wanting to, the feelings of being alone and and no one wanting you to be with you is just kind of, yeah. So yeah, just the idea that there's a writer who would just like fight for everyone is, yeah. And then we get to Kusaka. Oh boy, how do we explain Kusaka?
He's a shithead.
Exactly.
Like,
basically, Kusaka is basically the biggest bastard in Kamen Rider. And Rider has tried to make bastard characters before.
Kusaka is where they succeeded.
Kusaka to me kind of like he's kind of like Michi except on crack.
No, he's basically Michi but irredeemable.
Oh yeah, no, like yeah, Michi, as we were talking about earlier, like he does get a redemption arc, and he's also a teenager, so he still has like years left on his life where he could like redeem himself for the shit he pulled. Kusaka is just an absolute utter shit fuck who has nothing redeeming about him whatsoever.
There is actually like some parallels between the two because one of them's like because Kusaka has a creepy obsession with the main girl Mari. Yeah, and it's more just like the thing about Toshiki Inoue as a writer is he loves to write ass. He has tropes. He is not kind to women in a lot of his works. He loves to write just asshole characters. But the thing I will give him about Kusaka is, and I think this is the only time he did it, Kusaka got what he deserved in the end. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure you can all guess where that goes. But yeah, a lot of I like all the gear. I think I love the fact that his bike turns into a robot. That's yeah, and yeah. So and also going back to Kusaka, I feel like Kusaka worked because he got recently, especially in Kamen Rider 01, they tried to do a character. They tried to do another asshole character, but it didn't work for many reasons. And it's the fact that like the thing about Kusaka is you love to hate Kusaka. You don't love him, you love to hate him. But with the guy Matsu from 01, you just want him to go away. Like that was the difference. That's why Kusaka worked and he doesn't. So yeah, no, I would say watch Vice, but just forewarned that there is a lot of like themes in it that might be like upsetting to people. Which yeah. And then we flip the coin to the meme show. Kamen Rider X8, or as I like to call it, the Rider series that reshaped Rider. I mean, as much as I like X8, its effect on the franchise hasn't been all positive.
I just love the fact that like because we have these pictures of the two posters next to each other, fucking you have Fi's over here, very simplistic poster. It's just him with the bike, and then his background is him and the bike's robot form. And he just has like, the very clean face helmet. And then you look at the poster for XA that just has like all this crap going on. And this is basically an anime dude as a armor suit.
Contrast.
Yeah, you want to talk about juxtaposition. Holy fuck.
I believe they were 14 years apart though.
I mean, yeah.
Like,
most of our choices have been that way. It's been Neo.
I think yours two are closer than mine, but yeah, yeah, so X8. X8 is basically the story of gaming themed so it's about this group of doctors, and the main character is called Emu, and he basically and there's this and he's also a gamer, but there's also this virus called the Bugs, which creates a Bugs called the Bugsters, which are video game themed viruses, and he transforms into Kamen Rider X8 to fight the to fight the Bugsters, but there are also other ones. Like this is basically another thing about Modern Rider versus older series. There are like a ton of riders, like started in Gaim, but nowadays they have to shove in like 10 riders into it, try and shove in like 10 riders into a series. Like stuff. I mean, X-Aid wasn't as bad as some other series, but so X-Aid you had X-Aid, Brave, Snipe, Laser, and then and his bike's also a rider because of course. Anyway, yeah. So the thing about X-Aid is it kind of does. So it also introduced another character to Rider who I think had the biggest effect on the franchise out of possibly any character. I'm trying to think if there was one that was more. Anyway, yeah, his name is Dan Kuroto. Kamen Rider Genom. Or Gen. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, he basically became a meme because he was a very over the top wacky character, but he was and yeah. So he basically came in and because he was originally supplying them with the stuff, but he was also like a double agent, so he was also working with the Bugsters, and he had like
Well,
this.
he wasn't a double agent. He was working for himself.
Yeah,
I was trying to
basically.
remember.
Yeah, no, basically
remember.
Dan Kuroto runs the Genom Gaming Corporation, which developed all the gear that they use to fight the Bugster viruses. But because he is also basically insane, he more or less just was doing other things on the side just because he could and for his own purposes, basically.
He has
He
a god
created-
complex.
That's putting it
So-
mildly, yes.
We had Kusaka, who is an asshole. This guy, Dan Kuroto has his head so far up his ass, he may as well be sticking another version of his head out his own mouth. The guy was just full of himself
Yeah.
to a point where God complex is an understatement.
I don't know. I just remember that bloody spin-off thing, Laser versus Genom, where he had God Maximum Mighty X.
I never
He
watched
does
that.
view himself as a god, and he kept changing his name throughout the series to put some form of god or deity, some kind of thing in his name to make him sound like a deity.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Dan Kuroto, as much as I like Dan Kuroto, he definitely had an effect on the. He definitely led to Rider becoming even more memey because it's just even like from like it came out in 2017, I believe, and we're in 2021, and the effect, and they're still trying to do characters like him in the current series. But yeah, so they do a lot of stuff. It's really interesting. Yeah, it's like so they do a lot of things with X8. So they have like all these because this one it's kind of like Gaim where it kind of looks really silly, but it has like a good story, an actual like decent story behind it. Yeah. Also, Sniper is my favorite design. I mean, I usually hate non-symmetrical rider designs, but that one just works.
I just love
Also,
the fact
how
that he has the hemo hair over one eye thing. And it's a freaking outfit.
Also, they have like these like mini forms which they transform into, and then they transform later into the normal rider looking forms.
Yeah, that was a thing I'd have to see in the first episode. It's like, what the fuck is that?
I remember when the design came out and everyone screamed at it
because it looks so weird.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you get to the plot basically becomes it's like the first part is about them trying to fight Dan Kuroto after he gains Dangerous Zombie, which is basically his power up, which makes him way stronger. And then you end up the Bucksters come into force with and I actually did want to mention I find it funny how both my picks have so you got like the riot troopers in 5s, and then you have the the player ones in X8.
Oh yeah.
I love mass-produced riders. Anyway, so yeah, you go from like that, and basically, and then so they resurrect Dan Croto, and he's not a good guy. They don't redeem him, but he's just sort of working with them. And then yeah, so it basically comes down, and then Daddy Dearest comes along. Dan Croto's dad turns out to be like the final villain, called Kamen Rider Kronos, who can control time. And yeah, and that leads to Emu unlocking the Hyper Muteki form, because that's a thing.
I just love how, like, as we're doing these, we're just like skipping around so damn much. Anyone who's listening is probably confused as fuck.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember X8. I haven't watched it since it came out. Yeah, anyway.
We picked such a great topic for this. Let's drool about shows we haven't seen in years. What the fuck are we talking about?
That's what makes it funny. Anyway, yeah, I think X8, I think, is okay. I will say, I want to go back to Fies. I say watch the movie Paradise Lost. X8, I say skip the movie. And the crossover movies are good though. Don't watch the main movie because it's really dumb. Because it's like oh, it's basically we gotta look, there's a kid in danger. Gotta save the kid. That's like never been established before. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Would you like to go on to the final man of the band, Scotty?
Well, first I'd like to interject that the thing with Exit is, if you watch it, it takes the gaming trope a little bit too seriously, because they basically made the actual ending for the show a DLC movie, if you think about it.
Oh God. I hate the fact that you're right. Anyway, so we're moving on to our last person.
So yeah, what's first on mine? Was it Kabuto or Double?
Kabuto.
I mean, so we go from a show where there's a quote unquote villain with his head shoved up his ass. Then we have our hero who has his head shoved up his ass.
Oh my God, that's
We're going to be
beautiful.
talking about Nintendo Soji.
Oh, everyone's favorite character.
The guy that believes himself to be a god.
Was the whole thing I walk on?
He walks the path.
Wasn't it like I walks the path of heaven to stand on the top of whatever? Or was that the other guy who was like, I stand on the top of whatever?
No, Nintendo Soji is he walks the path of heaven to basically stand over everybody else because he feels himself superior. Now, he's not trying to be a dick by saying he's superior to everyone else. The show just makes it look like he's superior to everybody else because of his godlike luck, fighting skill, blah 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 blah. So
it's a case of the dude is very confident in himself and he has the skill to back it up. He just kind of looks like an asshole as well.
Remember the bit in the first episode where I can't remember the secondary main character. He tries to summon the Kabuto Zector and it just goes away into Tendo's hands. He's like, "It's mine, give it back."
It's like, nope, this ain't meant for you, buddy. This is mine.
We're not giving it to you until Geo. What? Anyway, Scotty.
So, trying to remember off the top of my head Kabuto's plot because it's been a while since I watched it. So
there are worms.
Okay, the worms, but first. So in Kabuto's world, there was a cataclysm. A meteor crashed into the Earth, and essentially the aliens inside the thing are worms. Their whole gimmick is they kill you, take your form, your memories, everything, and they become you. Sometimes they even forget that they're the worms.
They're body snatchers. And also, I should mention that they don't actually look like actual worms. They look more like big green hulking beetles. But for some reason, they're called worms because naming is stupid.
I forgot about Sarsword.
We have an organization in this world called Zect. Zect are a PMC. They're a paramilitary company or a private military company. Their whole job is protect and serve for money. You see their basic troopers all the time in the show because they're patrolling everywhere. Every time there's a worm attack, they always show up, and they're the riot troopers of the series. They get downed in one hit, they are useless. And they went to the stormtrooper school of aiming at shit, unless it's one of the riders, because they seem to always be able to hit them for some
Yeah.
strange reason.
Yeah.
But during the first episode, we have a worm appearance. Essentially, worms, what they do is after they take a hold of a person, they take their body, take their memories and that, and they live amongst the humans. And then just randomly they just decide to attack humans because they want to take over the planet for some strange reason.
Because they're bored.
Who knows? So worms appear, they usually attack in groups, and more than not, what they're doing is they're trying to evolve to their higher state, trying to evolve their bodies. A basic worm is slow, bulky, and easy to kill. However, after a while, they will evolve into a more powerful form that is essentially what are like the monsters of the week for the show. The gimmick with this show is, however, if a worm reaches that form, only the riders can actually combat them because the worms, when they evolve, move at light speed. They go fast as fuck. So the riders, let's just take Tendo for example, who is our main hero, Kabuto, they have the ability to go at that same speed to combat them. Now, as when we see this combat, we see the rest of their world slow down as they fight normally. However, to the outside, humans, they're moving as if they're basically just going bzzz all over the place.
I believe like Kabuto is the fastest rider.
Technically, Kabuto tied with Fai's Axel form, but Fai's Axel form is limited to 10 seconds.
And then you remember one other element. His final form.
Then there's that, which just breaks reality.
Mm-hmm.
I love that whole stupid that always stupid debate of which is stronger, Show or Heisei.
Now,
uh,
I don't want to
Uh,
bore people with the plot. I want to talk more about my favourite part of the show, the suits. Because, my god, Kabuto nailed the suit design.
yeah, most of the suits in Kabuto are pretty solid. I think there's only like one that kind of never really resonated with me, but
Is that Drake's?
yes.
no, there's one.
Figured.
I've got. Mine's a different one. It's a sword. I just think the head looks silly.
Yeah,
With
but
the
I mean that to me like the swords, yeah, the head looks kind of goofy, but it also fits with his motif. No, freaking Drake's chest plate when he's in rider form. I don't know why, but that never resonated with me. Like, I understand why it's designed that way and it makes sense. I will fully admit that. But it never made sense to me. Or, I mean, it never resonated with me. That was
So
always the one
yeah,
I didn't like.
the way Kabuto's suits work, each suit has two forms. They have their armoured form, which is essentially a very bulky, great defense. They don't look that appealing to the eye. They look militaristic. The theme is insects again, because Kabuto was going back to because back in the day with Kamen Rider, it was mostly insect themed. Like the original Kamen Rider is based off a grasshopper. So they went back to insects, and this time they went with insects basically casting off their shells. So inside this bulky armoured form is the more sleekly designed Rider form.
yeah,
I
cast
just
off.
wish they didn't do the cast off gimmick. I like it, The cast off gimmick is also kind of an attack because when the armor casts off, it does physically fly off the rider and bashes into things. So they use it as like if they're surrounded, they just launch the armor off, and then whilst in the rider form, that's where they have superior attack, superior speed. And in the case of Kabuto, he's just a badass.
He is fast.
Now, Zect, the riders are meant to be Zect approved. Kabuto, however, is not, because the Kabuto Zect was originally meant to go to this one guy, but it went to Tendo. Tendo somehow had a belt. Don't know where the fuck he got it from.
Did they ever explain that?
I can't remember, but he had a belt and the Zector went to him, so he was able to turn into Kabuto.
Oh, I think I remember
guy-
I think I remember the explanation.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
the
they
thing
did
with
actually like kind of explain that. He ended up getting it as a kid.
He
And just
got it
hung
in
on
the
to
no
it.
in the movie. In the movie, what happens is it's destination time paradox, but what happens is in the movie, as I alluded to earlier, it's in another alternative universe where the world is screwed up even more by the meteor. So he uses his final form in the movie to go back in time and basically alter the damage, but he also finds like he saves himself when he was younger and gives him the Kabuto belt before he like disappears because he altered reality.
what do we
Because
have the
that
thingy wise?
because time travel.
Yeah, so I'm looking for the image so the image for the image for Kabuto we're using, is it got the rider form or does it have the armored form?
As a
It's the
rider
writer, I
form.
believe. Yeah.
So as you can see in your scene, the rider forms we have Kabuto, Gatak, who's a stag beetle, we have Zabi, who is a wasp.
Actually, the picture that
Zabi,
QB gave me only has Kabuto on it. It has like
Yeah,
the
only
yeah,
has
armor flying off.
Kabuto.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
I'll
go.
talk about Zabi is the whore of the show because that Zector just goes to everybody.
I think it's yeah, but you also got to remember one of the again. Our old buddy Toshiki Inouye wrote this, and another one of partly wrote for Kabuto. And another one of his tropes is he likes to throw rider gears around. I didn't mention it earlier, but the Fies gears get thrown. All the Fies belts get tossed around throughout that series as well.
So yeah,
Uh,
most of the Zectors in the show stay with one rider. Like Tendo keeps Kabuto. The guy who was going to become Kabuto, I can't remember. I think it's Kagami, became
yeah,
Gatak.
yeah,
Gatak is.
Gatak.
I like Gatak's weapon over Kabuto's. I don't like the kunai gun. I like the twin swords of Gatak. The Zabi is just a dick. I hate the bee form and I hate the wasp form. I don't like it. We have
Mm.
Drake, who
I like Drake, but yeah.
anybody who's listening, if you want to understand who the character of Drake, look up a scene called Ultimate Supreme Makeup
Oh no.
because this show tried to take itself seriously,
And then that
and then
character exists.
they made Drake to be the comic relief. Also, Drake has a
Uh,
gun.
I just remembered something about
Yes.
Kiva. Do you remember Exercise Crunch?
Oh yeah, we didn't really talk much about Ixa and that fun.
Ixer is a fun rider.
So yeah, later on, I will say I do not like the hyper forms, which is essentially Kabuto's final form, more or less, because there isn't really like a mid-season upgrade or
This was
a
before that
final
became
form
popular.
in Kabuto. They just kind of stick with their normal forms throughout most of the show, and they're still able to go toe to toe with most of the ones because they kind of don't grow as they're not really they don't really have any generals. They're more just single agents.
I think there were like a few that were like higher tier style worms, but yeah.
Until we get to the finale, which is just weird. Man, I don't want to spoil the show. If you want to watch it, go watch it.
Yeah, we're trying not
Kabuto
to do too
is,
much.
and of course, those who don't know Kabuto's actor, recently it started his own YouTube channel where he does cooking things, because in the show Kabuto was a master chef. For some, I don't know why. And there's a gif of him wearing a chef's hat drinking soup, which is my favourite scene. Now, I'm going off on a tangent again. I'm trying to make myself sound serious here, but if you like your dark, very dramatic shows, Kabuto is the one for you, because there's a lot at stake. With the worms being able to take the form of anybody, you could literally be talking to someone who is your best friend, but they're probably a worm, but they have the memories of when they were of the human they took, so they know what you're talking about. So they are the perfect infiltration agent, because they mimic the person they
Everything.
kill.
Yeah, they mimic
And
everything.
that is some of the plot points of the show, where I think it's one of Kagami's friends turns out to be a worm, and then the worm tries to use that against him to basically stop him from taking him out. And we won't. I'm not. Before we move on to the other show I picked today, do not watch the Hyper Battle DVD for Kabuto, because you do not want to listen to the Zectors talk. Ever.
I mean, isn't it the only way to see hyper attack?
That is true, yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Kabuto is on my number 2 or 3 in my top 5 riders to watch. I might rewatch it because I don't know if I'm getting half the plot right. I don't really remember half of the shit. I like watching the shows. I like watching the shows for the explosions, the suits, and to hear the suffering of people.
That's the best reason.
Now, let us move on to the quote-unquote first of the Neo Heisei era.
Hey, look, it's the one that saved Rider. Well, saved.
This one, because we talked a bit about a show called Decade earlier, and Decade as a show was meant to celebrate the first 10 years of the Heisei era of Kamen Rider, but it served another purpose. It's a very short show, but Decade basically was used by Toei to split the Riders. So the Riders and their other show, Super Sentai, start times for when the show starts by half a year. So Rider would start in the middle of the year, and Sentai would start at the beginning of the year, to kind of split them apart, so they'd have more time to work on both shows without schedules conflicting with story writers, film crew, etc., etc. Double was the first show to come after this, and as QB said, it basically saved the low ratings of the semi-lower ratings of the Heisei era, because
It's
it wasn't meant to last as long as it did.
basically what happened, as far as I know, is Toei's original plan. What happened was, back in the Showa era, Kamen Rider was cancelled after Black RX, and because
ratings.
yeah,
And then they had a big long hiatus for about.
and like they had a couple of good films in there, like Zeto, but yeah, and then you get to Kuga. Kuga and Agito were the first two of the Heisei era. They were the only two that meant to happen. But then apparently TV Asahi, I believe that, the TV Asahi, I think their logos are there on the poster of Kabuto and Double. They're on the screen. They basically wanted more Rider, and that's what led. But then Ryuki happened, which we mentioned. Everything just goes back to Ryuki. Ryuki happened, and it basically wrecked Kamen Rider and basically after that, from Phase to Decade, it was basically just really confused about what it was, because it tried all this different stuff.
It was an experimental phase.
It became experiment, especially with stuff like Deno and
And there's also the Hibiki thing.
Poor Hibiki.
Yeah, Hibiki got the dick shit, but let us talk about Double. Double
went back to what made Rider good.
Double is a noir detective drama with Kamen Riders.
I think it's basically one of the ones.
To most people in the Kamen Rider fandom, it is considered a perfect show. That is debatable because no show can be perfect.
It's not
However,
perfect.
the
I will
show
fight.
overall has above average quality, above average acting, and is a very good starting point if you want to get into Rider.
It's a great show. I don't think it's perfect.
Yeah. So, the story of Double follows our two heroes of the Narumi Detective Agency, Shotaro and Philip. Shotaro is he, he's a bit clueless.
He's a goofy goober.
Yep. And his detective agency, well, how do I put it? They don't really deal in normal cases. They're it's, we'll get to. How do
We'll
I,
get to Philip.
trying to figure out how to say this.
Basically,
Usually the cases these guys take always end in them fighting the monster of the week.
the Dopants.
But the Dopants, who are humans who have bought what is called a Gaia memory. Gaia memories are being sold by these vendors who are guys in suits, and their job is to sell you these memories to give you. It's essentially like drug trap. It's basically a drug. You buy the memory and you get a tattoo on you, which allows you to use the memory. And the memory usually has something related to it. Like the one in the beginning is magma, so the guy literally spews magma.
Yeah. I think like the whole thing about the Dopant is I think it's like the less like specific a word is, the more powerful the Dopant is, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Or
because the powers of each memory is dictated by what's on the memory. So, take for instance, the first one is magma. So
then
he just
there's
has he has little control over magma, and the guy essentially the episode for a woman comes to the detective agency. She asks to find her boyfriend who's went missing. Turns out this boyfriend is using the memory and is going after this specific company in the town they're trying to protect.
hmm.
But it later turns out that that woman is also a doper, and she was trying to get rid of him because he was helping her get revenge on the company for firing her,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
remember
the
correctly. But she's
I
also a
think
childhood friend of Shotaro's.
yeah, she tries to use him.
Yep.
But
But
yeah, it's I think it's like it has the gimmick of double as it's two people as one rider.
hmm
So yeah,
So
Philip and Shotaro.
Philip, on the other hand, is a recluse. He doesn't really leave their base of operations, which on the outside is a detective agency, but tucked away in the corner is this kind of door. Well, it's not really tucked away; it's just kind of there. And it says on the door, I think storeroom, but inside is like a garage where Philip stays.
Hmm.
He sits there, he reads books. He's a genius. Shotaro's the one that goes out into the field, and when they need to transform, they're somehow mentally connected. I don't. So
I
they
think
just
it's like
know.
I think it's the belts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
So
belt. So like Shotaro puts the belt on, which generates a one on Philip at the same time. They
It's
both
also
Philip
yeah,
like puts his Gaia memory into his side and like it transfers his consciousness.
and
into
it's
the
sort of like
memory,
it's the opposite for
one
Fang Joker.
it's
Yeah.
the opposite for one of the upgrade forms, but how they solve the crimes is basically through Philip. Philip, who we later learn is kind of a unique case because how the Gaia memories are formed in the universe is a particular place that this basically the Sorozaki family, who are the villains of the show, they have their organization called the Museum, and they're the ones that distribute the Gaia memories to the town.
Mm.
To generate them, they have a thing that is connected to the Earth, which generates a memory from a part of the Earth. So therefore, magma, the woman in the second episode has one called T-Rex, which turns into the head of a T-Rex, and she can form junk around her to have a giant T-Rex body.
Yeah.
And Philip is the son of the guy that runs the museum, but he fell into this fountain and got connected to the earth and lost all his memories. So they then used him to generate more memories and make them more powerful. And the family is evil as fuck. But Philip escapes thanks to Shotaro and Shotaro's mentor who passed away.
Oh, I missed that guy.
Yeah, well, in the show he's passed away. I don't know if the actor's passed away, I can't remember, but
Yeah.
how these two meet is an event that they constantly refer to in the show as Begins Night, where Shotaro and his mentor Sokichi are sent to get Philip from this building by Philip's mother, who is basically another character in the show who's manipulating people to get her revenge on the Sonozaki family.
Basically, the events of Begins Night are shown in.
One of the movies,
Du-
but we just see a snippet.
Isn't it
of
Double
it.
versus Is it Double versus Decade?
Yeah. Double
It's
Yeah.
Fast
the
shows Begins Night stuff.
Yeah.
So they
Which,
go there. Shotaro finds Philip after his mentor, who's also a Kamen Rider Skull, who's an awesome Kamen Rider. If you look up the design, it's fucking amazing.
Skull's great.
He finds Philip, fucks up the whole thing, the mentor dies, and then Shotaro and Philip become transformed into Kamen Rider Double, who is on your screen. He is but after losing their first fight, Philip takes control and becomes Kamen Rider Fang Joker using the Fang memory. And Fang Joker is their berserk form, which destroys everything in sight, even the building, and they then put an embargo on the thing to never use it again.
It is probably the best form in the show.
Yep.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the thing's also sentient, so he kind of just like ran off.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just kind of shows up only when they really, really need it.
I think it was meant to be like his protector or something.
Yep.
Pretty much.
So,
It's like you can think it's probably like just lurking in the shadows around where he is, just watching.
Yeah.
So before the mentor dies, he gives Shotaro one of his hats and basically tells him to protect Philip. And Shotaro has always basically doubted himself semi-doubted himself after that, but uses that as a reason to go after the Gaia memories to stop anything from happening to people. Because eventually, after a while, if you constantly use the memory, you go berserk.
Yeah.
Because you lose yourself to the power inside of it.
The Gaia memories that Double and later the other Rider Axel use, their pure Gaia memories, while the ones that the Dopants use are unrefined and yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to get into. I'm going to do the same as what I did with Cabot. I'm not going to explain too much of the plot because I don't want to ruin it, because Double's plot is amazing. The show in all of itself does have its flaws. There's a few episodes where you kind of think that some things don't really make sense.
I mean,
There's other episodes that just make perfect sense.
I could throw out one of my problems with one of my smaller problems with Double.
Yes.
Extreme is kind of a bad final form.
I like Extreme, not gonna lie. Extreme.
I mean, that's fair.
I like the fact that it's an evolution of the base form instead of just being a completely unique form. It's just, I think Extreme kind of runs into a small problem where they gave it too much power.
I think the problem is just the X motif doesn't work as well, I think, as the Double motif. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
I just hate how it's so damn chunky.
Yeah, it is chunky.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, boy, he's thick. That's a thick ass boy.
God damn it. God damn it.
And of course, probably one of the best subplots in the show, which I'm just going to say the name of it, but if you guys, like I said, I'll highly recommend Double, highly recommend Kabuto. Double is number 2 or 1 on my list, depending on when you talk to me, is the weather sub-arc.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that guy, that fun guy.
Weather is...
He's interesting.
He's a guy that's close to Kaixa levels of being a dick, but you still love him regardless.
Yeah.
And it's a shame the actor that did play the weather Dopant did pass away a couple of years ago, which is sad. I think he passed away not long after Double had finished wrapping up. It was kind of his magnum opus, if you will, but the weather arc is beautifully crafted, it is full of suspense, it's full of drama, and its payoff works because of the character it's connected to, which is our secondary Axel. Axel was just rage incarnate.
I do like how this might sound off. I do like how in one of the Drive V cinemas they included Axel and just showed that like they're still that like the city Futo is still having like dopant problems like years later. Like it's not like Double the series ended and like all the dopants were defeated. It was good to see Drive meet another rider randomly from a different series. Anyway.
So, with that being said,
Who wants to talk about O's? Hey, we got a bonus round. It's a bounds round.
oh yeah, welcome to the bounds round. But first, let me finish off on my thoughts on Double. Watch
Yeah,
it.
sure.
If you don't like it, that's understandable. Everybody has their own opinions, everybody has their own tastes. However, if you're looking to get into Rider as if you're looking to get into your first ever Rider, X-Aid is a good one, Double's a good one. I would say from the first Heisei, even though we've dragged on it a bit today, Deno, because Deno is kind of a childish series and takes the piss quite a bit, so it's kind of fun to get into.
Can I say something quickly?
Yes.
Watch Double's movie as well. Double Forever.
Oh yeah, no, that one is like an absolute. You have to watch that one because that one is in canon with the main show in several ways, and it's also just really damn good.
It's debatably for me. It's debatably the best Rider movie, and I only say that because the Fies movie is up there as well. I think. Yeah, those two. B and O. Yeah. So yeah. What do you think, Scotty?
Just give me a second. What?
So
We're
do you
going
want
to
to
talk
move
about the
on?
bounds round.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Ages of Chaos bounds round, and that is Kamen Rider O's.
Bounds round as we sit here ripping off a Cat Icarus joke.
Wait, what's an original joke? Anyway, so we saw because I want to talk about XA because XA. Also want to talk about O's because O's is an extra. Is basically probably what I would say is the best Rider series, and if not, it's up there. Because O's is basically is basically a series about desire and want, and it's about this lovable main character called Eiji Hino and his bird boyfriend Ankh, he's basically one of the generals, of the villains, but he basically wanted to work for himself because greed. And yeah, they have this dynamic, and also probably the best, and this one probably has the best forms in all of Rider, and just like Tachado.
I mean, it is a beautiful suit.
Yeah, and also probably like I know we haven't really discussed it, but Rider kind of has a villain problem. A lot of them aren't really that interesting. This one probably has like the best villain in Rider. Dr. Markey.
Well, villain. I mean, the Greed are also good villains.
Yeah, the Greed are good villains, but I think he kind of stole the show on just with his backstory and everything. And just how, like, everything he does and how he's defeated in the end. But yeah, no, watch O's for a good time. Also, don't watch the movie. Also, the only movie you need to watch connected to O's is the crossover with the following series, Forza.
Oh yeah, O's Forza Mega Max.
Do not watch. Okay, O's versus Double is tricky because on the one half the O's side is good. The double side is good. The O's part is bad, and then you got Kamen Rider Core, which can piss off as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, the frickin' movie wars are like a whole topic and a half of themselves.
Comment below if you want us to yell about them.
Or, just comment below anything, because fuckers ain't leaving comments.
God damn
yeah,
it.
I'm calling y'all out. Write something, you shits.
Loving audience. Anyway, yeah, so, yeah, I think that's everything. So, thank you everyone for watching. Does any of my co-hosts want to say anything?
Yes, happy birthday to you.
God damn it, I didn't do that. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I forgot Kogami. Watch O's for Kogami. I'm not explaining him. None of us should explain him. You have to see him to believe him.
I feel like we barely explained anything about this. We spent over like an hour and a half on everything else, and O's is getting like 5 seconds.
I'm giving it the O's. Watch it.
It is really good.
It is. I think O's is like the series which I'm like, I don't want to explain it. Just go watch it.
Here's your homework, folks. Go watch O's and then come back and leave your comments on what you thought about it.
And if you have seen O's, still comment.
Like I said, write something, damn it.
Anyway, this has been Cube. Signing off. Anyone got any goodbyes for today?
All I'd say is just thanks for listening to another one of our episodes.
Yes, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
This has been Agents of Chaos, where order goes to die and chaos reigns.
See, that's why this podcast makes no sense. Anyway, bye-bye.